Hello again, everybody. I just wanted to take some time and go over some questions that I have had coming in over the last week or so about the final paper. Um, if you have any specific questions after this is over, please feel free to shoot me a message on Remind. That's been the best way to communicate back and forth, so I appreciate you all using that interface. What I want to focus on in our short session here is going to be the goals of the assignment first. Second, it's going to be the way that the assignment should be structured from kind of an organizational standpoint. And then the last thing that we're going to look at is some kind of nuts and bolts MLA stuff, some effective habits, some ineffective habits, some ideas that are going to help you to revise your work as you go. I'm going to post today or tomorrow an announcement about the end of the semester. All work is going to be due by May 10th. That is the week before finals week begins. That's the Sunday before finals week begins. It'll give me some time to go through what I have, what I don't have. And going into that week, you'll have a provisional grade for the class. Um, and the grading standards are going to be similar to the labor-based grading, but I'm going to be really kind of lenient on the smaller assignments. Those are going to help to bump people into the range of an A. If you've done the major assignments and you meet all the learning expectations, you're going to be in a B range. And if you are missing something or if there's a seriously underdeveloped paper, that's going to place you in the C range. If you're missing substantial, most of the coursework for the semester, that's going to place you in the D range. And I'll have a detailed rundown, revised kind of contract for that. And if you have questions or if you want to move around, those dates give you a full week, a little bit over a week actually, to contest that grade, to talk about that grade, and to get your work where it needs to be. Because really, all what it's about, as I said at the very beginning of the semester, is meeting the learning outcomes. I need to make sure that your writing skills are enough to help you succeed at the next level, and that is not going to be a barrier. And so I want to make sure that that happens. So let's just get right into the assignment. Just to reiterate some of the goals for the assignment, the best thing you can do is to go on to the PowerPoint that I created and linked under Unit 3. It gives you all the goals for this assignment, everything that you would need to do. But essentially, it's an argumentative essay. And you can choose one of two methods of argument. You can either choose the Rogerian method, which is where you're specifically arguing your point to an opposing perspective, or you can choose a classical, a traditional argument, right, where you're using a central thesis statement at the end of your intro paragraph to drive a rational discussion of your perspective on why a certain topic should be thought of in a certain way. And so, um, whichever route you choose is fine. I base this on coronavirus, to take an issue surrounding coronavirus and to take some time, do some research, and argue your perspective on that topic, on that theme. You don't need to do coronavirus if you are coronavirused out. Um, you're more than welcome to choose some other argumentative essay topic. I would ask that it's something original and that it's intended for this course. Um, but please make sure that that you're using one of those two methods. Aside from that, really it's wide open. The paper that I'm going to highlight here, and the one that is up on my screen, is from a couple of years ago, a few semesters back, um, when I would just allow people to argue their perspective to someone who believed the opposite, right? So find something that you're passionate about or find something that you believe strongly in, think about who your audience is, and then make your argument specifically to that audience. And so it shows exactly what we're doing. This particular paper is on refugees. I don't have any old papers on COVID-19, obviously. Um, But I think this is going to showcase some of the things that you might want to look to do, some things that you might want to avoid. I'm not going to be making this paper available because though I had permission to use it, I didn't get permission to reproduce and distribute it. So I don't feel comfortable making copies of someone's work to use in that way. But we can certainly go through it. And we'll get to some of the MLA style structural things later. But we can see that this person chose traditional argumentative structure. And so it says here, most refugees are not born into fortunate situations. Many people around the world deal with circumstances that are detrimental to everyday life. So here we have the hook statement, and when you're writing your hook statement for this paper, you want to create the audience that you're going to be arguing to. So she chose, in this case, to discuss a situation that people might not be familiar with. She chose to just kind of list this. It's not a incredibly catchy hook, but it is very effective in telling us what it is that we're going to be looking at, providing a definition for a situation. And so from that hook, it links down, and we see her single thesis statement. Given that refugees should be socially accepted because they are persecuted for religious and political beliefs and have very few opportunities in their country, um, a good education for their children and a safe environment for their families is necessary. So I'm going to make that alteration. So it's really a human rights argument here. And so now it goes into kind of a general statement. It's a paragraph that people, hopefully on both sides of this issue, would accept. And so she writes that America was built on the principle of welcoming immigrants and refugees. Actually, as I'm reading this, I think that that statement there probably would have made a really strong um, hook statement. And then right here, this is one of the things I wanted to kind of point you towards as something to think critically about. If this is the topic sentence, right, that America should welcome or has a history of welcoming refugees, all of a sudden she introduces this author, this source, and cites this source as being something that supports this. We don't know who this person is. We don't know why it's important to cite that individual. And so there's nothing in between here to contextualize, to build the context to the quote that she chooses to cite. So here we have the quote. America has been a shelter for people that seek a safer way of life. People have from all around the world, whatever culture they come from, or whatever religion they belong to, have made America what it is now. There's that discussion. So if this goes up here, all of a sudden this quote makes more sense. And my paragraph is starting to look like something out of like a John Madden commentary or whatever. But you can kind of see America has been a shelter for people that seek a safer way of life. Um, They are not here to take jobs away from citizens, but rather are willing to work diligently and out of appreciation for the opportunities the country is offering. This kind of comes out of left field, to use a bad sports metaphor. So if we take a look at this sentence here, this is a new idea. Oops. You saw that happen, right? New idea. Every time you have a new idea, this belongs in another paragraph. And so as we scroll down here, the fact that a commonly misunderstood or misperception of immigrants is that they're going to be taking jobs away from citizens, right, seems to be its own paragraph. And in fact, there's even a quote to support this paragraph right here. And so we have a paragraph break. And one of the things that and I said this in class um, 10 years ago before this all started, but I said this in class. One of the biggest things that I see is a paragraph trying to do too much. So a paragraph has too many ideas and isn't developed enough. And as I've said before, I think we do this because we don't want to be redundant. We want to present new information. But it's important to remember that to the reader, it's all new information, right? Like, so everything that you're arguing, they're hearing potentially for the first time. Even if you've said it before, it's that old card game metaphor. You can teach somebody how to play poker once, but they're probably not going to be good at it or fully understand the rules until they play it a couple times. And so I'm going to kind of scroll through. You can read, pause this and read as we go through. I think it's nice that she refers to her last paragraph here before moving on to the next. It's a nice link. If you notice the citations, she cites frequently. And in a situation like this, she has three different citations or three different ideas coming from a single text. As long as you're going to deal with all of these, it makes sense to combine them in this way, or if they all say the same type of thing and you're providing a sample. Otherwise, if you have more than 3 lines of quotes, it might be helpful to deal with these quotes individually. We have some weird formatting stuff going on up here. And this all happens, by the way, if this ever happens to you, it's because you have your setting, this setting right here, turned on. So if I click here, that fixes it. All right, a lot of times I'll see this, and it looks funny because you've indented and then all of a sudden it spreads it out or you haven't filled your entire line. And this just blocks your paragraph. You'll see this a lot in like newspapers, um, these block texts. You just want to always make sure you're justified to the left. Oops. Another reason why I chose this one is because it does a nice job of doing block quotes. You don't need to use block quotes. You probably aren't going to be using something that's this long, but something to keep in mind. We're going to talk a little bit about this. I'm going to come back to it when we talk about MLA citation. I'm not sure if you can hear that, but that's my kids yelling at each other in the background. So that's a nice little bonus for everybody. And then we'll just look quickly at her conclusion, right? So we have a restatement of the thesis. I always say to make sure that you don't restate your thesis in a better way than you stated it in the first place. I think this is the case where she does. I think this is a better version of her thesis. Um, I think that if she had started here, in their countries of origin, refugees are forced to abandon their families, their memories, and the things that they value most. Their journey to the United States is often harsh. I think that all of those things are relevant and would probably work as a first sentence of your intro, of your conclusion, and then you could bring that back up to your intro. Okay. Um, this is an interesting way to represent a series of statistics. This isn't actually MLA with the bullets. If it were me, um, I would probably represent this as a graph and then cite where the information came from. So I would probably do something like this and have the group and then the fatalities on this side, and then have the numbers and then the names and represent it like that. This bullet isn't as effective, and doesn't invite comparison. It doesn't help you to do the thing that you would hope the audience is doing. All right. So going back to the front or to the top, what you call it. Um, this is the right format for your heading. This is the correct format for your title. So your heading is going to have your name, my name, the course you're in, the date the paper's due. The title is going to be centered in the paragraph, and it should be some allusion to your thesis. Okay. So this refugees, should the U.S. accept or reject them? Um, I, it's kind of clunky phrasing. If I'm going to be nitpicky, it's saying should the U.S. accept or reject refugees? Um, Maybe if you were to take a look at the thesis, refugees and social norms, maybe, or refugees and social, yeah, refugees and society, or refugees in America, or um, misperceptions about refugees in 21st century America. Maybe something along those lines. But again, as long as it's some version of your thesis statement, it's going to be fine. Now, the one thing that this doesn't do, I'm going to move myself here. The one thing that this doesn't do is it doesn't have MLA page numbers. A lot of times people have questions about this, so I'm going to show you how you'll access those. If you go up to Insert at the top of your screen, you go into your header and footer box, you click page numbers, you want it at the top of the page, and you want it justified to the right, so it's plain number 3. And after you have that, you're going to put your last name in a single space, and then leave the header and footer, and that will make sure that your name is at the top of every page. Now, a couple things that I wanted to point out in the body of the essay itself. When you're citing, if you have a page number, that page number should be immediately after your citation. So for example, this, because the author's name is right here, should at minimum have this if you have a page number available. And I don't know if this is the page number, but if you don't have a page number available, this author's last name is fine. Um, but even like a PDF or a web page, if those things have page numbers, that's okay to put right here. If you can save a web page as a PDF, it'll tell you what page you're on. You're more than welcome to use that. And here we see we don't have an author. According to the article, Middle East refugees seek education for their children, right? We want to think about who our author is here so that we can put the last name of that author. And all of these things, so just to kind of show at the end of all of these should directly relate or directly point to what comes first in your works cited page. So for instance, Angelina Jolie, right, is the author of this, and I think it's actually the Angelina Jolie. Um, we have Priyanka Madaparthi, who is writing this. We see a lot here, though, of texts with no author. And, some of that is okay. I'm not sure. I haven't checked this to see if it had an author. See here, we have the editor. That's fine. Um, but if you have a lot of sources that have no author, it's a good idea to go in and uh, put those authors in. And I wanted to come back here to this. In MLA style, the date isn't what matters. It's the page number. So you want the author's last name, a single space, and the page number. So that would look, what did I do here? That would actually look like this. And I know sometimes it looks off because you don't have a page or a P or anything like that in front of the page number, but it really is just the author's last name, a single space, and the page number it occurs on. And so we see the author's last name here, and I think a lot of these are internet sources, so you might not have the page number. Once again, you can fix this by going to justifying to the left. And the final thing, I'm going to put this actually underneath. If you are still struggling or have questions about MLA, I'd be happy to answer them on Remind. But before you ask on Remind, I would recommend you go to Purdue OWL. So it's owl.purdue.edu. And let's see if that'll hyperlink here. Well, I would just Google search Purdue OWL. There's also an Excelsior OWL that's New York State's version. I think that's very good, but it has all of your MLA questions answered. A lot of times it has videos, it has formats, frameworks that you can adopt. In terms of due dates, I said I was going to run through those. If you have anything from previous units that's due or that you've, excuse me, completed but haven't submitted, all the due dates have really been scratched for this semester. So if you want to still turn those things in, you absolutely can. You'll receive credit for them. And again, it's all labor based. So as long as you submit the assignments, if you turn all the assignments in the spirit that they were asked, you're going to be just fine for the course. So please, please keep that in mind. Um, I appreciate all the work that everybody's put in so far. I appreciate all of your time and energy and effort in spite of, our challenges. Please keep working. We're almost to the finish line, and let me know if you have any questions or concerns. Have a great day.